All right, welcome to another episode of the Trial Attorneys. My name is Shay Allen.
Ricky Granderson.
And of course, we are expert trial attorneys coming off another victory last week, another good victory.
Machine gun case.
Machine gun. Client was looking at 6 to 30, 85%. He's at home with his family today. Today, we're here to talk about big law, all of these executive orders that have come down from Trump in regards to big law. So before we start with that, I think a lot of times people get confused about lawyers, law, big law, what we do, that sort of thing. So in essence, Ricky, what is big law?
Well, big law is these firms, normally large firms. These big law firms have been established for years. Quote unquote, the best schools, who represents these. They bring in billions and billions of dollars, represent these high profile corporations and people's. They got all this power.
Yeah. So generically, big law, like you said, they're huge law firms that may have thousands of attorneys across the United States. But then even deeper than that, us as attorneys, we're both solo practitioners, meaning that we both have our own business. We both have our own firms.
We're independent.
But a lot of times I believe people get the misconception that because you are a solo practitioner or because you work at a small firm, that somehow you're not as good as the attorneys at big law.
Absolutely not. But it's like this. For example, I try to not have more than, I try to keep my cases around 50 cases.
Right.
And the reason why is because I want to make sure that I can give the appropriate amount of time for each of my clients.
Sure.
See, that's more important to provide the best representation and not have high volume.
Right.
So when you have smaller firms and you have a personal relationship. Mm-hmm. A lot of these the higher ups partners, they probably don't even see 80% of who their clients are. But we see our clients, we talk to them, we interview them, we know what they do, what their parents, how many kids they have. We interview them when they walk in. Mm-hmm. So, you have and then you really become involved in your client. You're part of your client.
Right.
I mean, I had a couple invite me to the family reunion.
Right. It happens. And then on the other side too, big law, these huge law firms, more often than not, they represent huge corporations. I haven't seen, and again, I think this is a problem within the business world. I've never seen corporations give business to smaller firms or a solo practitioner. They usually go to these bigger firms because these bigger firms hold themselves out to be the best, and to many extents, it's advertising. What the difference is, what I think a lot of people don't understand is, litigators, and that's why this show is called The Trial Attorneys, because we go to trial. We have done trials. We'll do a trial. And to be honest, we're some of the best attorneys in Chicago at trial, and that's just the truth of the matter. And no matter where these other big law folk or any other attorney, for that matter, if you're gonna meet us in the courtroom, you're gonna have a problem, and that's the reality of it. And we both just happen to go to Howard Law,
Howard University School of Law.
Howard University, and I mean, of course, that's a great school in itself. But in addition, I think a lot of the big law attorneys, they come into court with this air of superiority as well.
And I think that's a disadvantage.
Absolutely.
Because when you come in overly confident, then you're letting your guard down.
Right.
Us, we're more grassroots attorneys. We deal with people at this lowest basic, off the street. Mm-hmm. I have an issue. Can you help me?
Right.
I love it when they let their guard down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then you put yourself at a disadvantage.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, even if they don't, I've gone against some of the law firms on this that we're going to talk about. I've had cases against these firms. Some haven't gone my way, but a lot have gone my way, and it's just me. It's versus they bring in 30 attorneys and then it's me. So that's just the way. But
they lowered their guard and then boom, you hit them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the executive order we're talking about here, so it's executive power versus private practice. In early 2025, Donald Trump issued executive orders targeting major law firms. The orders claim these firms promoted woke DEI policies. This is what I've gathered. What it means is that people who are empathetic people who can put themselves in someone else's shoes and understand other cultures, ethnicities, religions, sexual orientations, and from these understandings, it kind of helps you shape yourself as a person.
I don't think there is a definition.
What is it?
No, I think they just take a word and use it in a negative way and attach it, because you never hear any of the Republicans define what it is. No. It's like saying Obama judge. So they attach a negative connotation to the word Obama. So people say, oh, Obama judge must be negative.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Trump judge, oh, he must be positive.
Right. And the thing that always cracks me up to DEI policies. I would love for people who don't support DEI policies to say, you know what, I'm against diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't like diversity, I don't like equity, I don't like inclusion, instead of just using the term DEI. But also, the executive orders that Trump wrote said that those law firms represented clients hostile to conservative interests, and they used pro bono efforts to advance partisan agendas.
You know what? They always speak in so neutral terms.
Right.
Because it sounds good. Mm-hmm. They would never tell you, well, what does that mean?
Right.
It's humble. It's just it's mess. It's garbage. Sure. It's meaningless. It sounds impressive to some people who intellectually don't want to try to figure out, well, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't even think it necessarily impresses those who don't want to understand it. I think they don't care either way. They don't care what it says, as long as it says that you're getting rid of or you're attacking folk who are apparently fighting for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So these executive orders, which the Trump administration has written, too many to count at this point, but they threaten cancellation of federal contracts with the firms or their clients, revocation of security clearances for attorneys, and public censure of firms and official White House communications.
Isn't that extortion? If you don't do this, I'm going to take money away out your pocket.
I think what is going over people's heads a lot of times, and if you're just a casual observer in politics, you aren't going to really pay attention to this. And I think that's why we wanted to talk about it, because this is an important moment where the President of the United States is taking out personal grievances against some of the largest law firms in the world.
And you know what that means? You know, these law firms, you know, they're supposed to be the biggest and the best, and they folded.
Yep. Yeah,
they punked out.
Right, we're going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
Just so we understand what's happening here, the President of the United States has told these law firms, I'm going to take money from you. I'm going to take away security clearances from your attorneys. I mean, a lot of times attorneys at some of these large law firms are former federal employees, hold formal federal positions, and you keep your security clearance. And the security clearance is important because you then get to be privy to certain information. You then are able to probably help your clients more so because you have the security clearance. But he's saying, I'm going to take that away from you. So then that's, again, taking money out of the firm's pockets. And he's going to say, I'm going to censure you in White House communications, meaning that I'm not going to let you see certain information. I'm going to take away certain information from you. And I'm going to make it more difficult for you to offer the services that you've been offering to your clients for years because you did something I didn't like.
Other words, you're not kissing the ring. That's what he said.
Yes.
That's what he said.
Yes, exactly. So this is a scary proposition. You know, some people may say, well, this is probably done behind closed doors anyway. Still doesn't mean it's good.
When they came for the communists, you did nothing.
Right.
When they came for the Jews, you did nothing. Mm-hmm. When they came for you, there's no one else left to protect you.
Right, exactly. So that's what's happening here. You know, a lot of people, you say, well, I don't feel sorry for the no one else feels sorry for attorneys. You know, even sometimes even I come home, my dog looks at me like, you know, like what you do today, you know. So it's tough to feel sorry for attorneys in many people's eyes, but attorneys, we're still human beings. We still bleed.
But here's the thing. But as a large firm, and you stick your chest out about how good you are, if you're not going to fight for yourself, you're not going to fight for this person who walks into your office and say, I was wronged by a major corporation, a car that was defective, and it killed my family. If you're not, as a large firm, going to fight for yourself, people will say, well, you're not going to fight for me.
Well, let's talk about that. Most of these firms, though, they represent corporations.
Okay.
They don't represent the little people. You know, they're
true.
on the other side anyway.
Oh, they represent Ford, but not by the person who gets killed by Ford.
Correct.
Got you.
So the first major firm that settled is a firm called Skadden Arps. It's one of the largest law firms in the world, meaning that they have thousands of attorneys. They hold themselves out as the best from the best schools, and they're the best at this and best at that, and we're the best. You know what they did? They folded like a cheap suit.
Exactly.
They folded.
Cowards.
So they said, okay, well, we're not going to go to court. We're not going to fight this. We're just going to say we're going to.
Oh, we got the best lawyers, though, right?
Yeah, but you know,
okay.
it's nothing we can do. You know, it's not like we can. It's not like we can file a lawsuit. You know, this happened. Someone office say, anybody know a good lawyer? That's what. And that's what happened.
Hey, what about those Howard guys?
Yeah. Somebody called up the Howard attorneys. We're in trouble. So they settled. They said they'd do $100 million.
That's extortion, dude.
In pro bono services aligned with Trump administration priorities.
What does that mean? See, they talk in these general terms. You do what I say. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If 1,000 people attack the Capitol and beat the police for 3 hours, you're going to have to represent all of them.
Yep. So. And they also said they're going to do internal review of hiring practices to ensure viewpoint neutrality.
The government.
That's what the firm said they're going to do.
Well, I mean, basically, the government's telling you.
Yes.
What does that mean?
The government's telling them get rid of any DEI policies they have, and they said okay.
So if I walk in and they go through my Facebook page and say Trump sucks at golf, you're not hired.
Yeah, I mean, they got to be neutral. That's what they said. They said they got to be neutral about the viewpoint.
But that's not neutral.
No.
You say they have to think how I think.
Yeah. This brings up an important point too. Being an attorney and doing what's right, it takes courage.
Yeah, that's true.
It takes courage, and unfortunately, in my opinion, a lot of attorneys do not have courage. When it comes down to it, and you're standing there in court, or you have to file this brief, or you have to stand up for this client or represent this client, most human beings have to choose between their career or their livelihood and doing what's right. They're going to choose themselves. I mean, I've had situations. I've sued some people. People told me, why would you sue this person? Why would you do that? Because it was the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And so doing what's right it's not easy. And so this firm, they like, we don't care what's right.
Don't we have rules of ethics? I mean, these attorneys, when these things are being imposed on them, do they need to sit down and review this and say, really, am I compromising my clients and potential clients by bowing down to these demands?
Yeah. To them, the bottom line,
money.
is gonna be money, and it's fine. I'm a businessman. We have businesses. I want my clients to pay me. That's part of it. But everything, I mean, money shouldn't override your morals, your values, your principles. And these folk, I'm sure, have made enough money to last themselves 10 lifetimes. But still, when this came in and said, "Oh, this could affect our bottom line," yeah, okay, whatever you want. So I tell you, who doesn't fight? Paul Weiss. Another large law firm.
Oh my God.
Yep. They negotiated $40 million pro bono deal, avoiding direct legal challenge. These actions help the firms avoid the full weight of the executive scrutiny. So Paul Weiss, another huge law firm. Best of the best, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best, blah, blah, blah. folded.
So, $40 million deal. That's just $40 million.
$40 million.
You know, here's $40 million.
Yeah.
Get off my back.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that means.
Yeah. Now, I will say there are some large firms that are fighting.
Yes, I saw that.
Perkins Coie, which I've gone against in court. Jenner Block, which I've dealt with in court. And Wilmer Hale. They filed lawsuits challenging the orders.
Men, women, strong attorneys who are fighting for the principle.
Yep. They've argued that the orders were retaliatory, unconstitutional, and a threat to independent legal practice, which they are. And over 500 firms signed an amicus brief supporting the Perkins Coie challenge. Amicus brief is basically a legal argument that people that aren't necessarily connected to the case file.
It's like friends of the court.
Right.
They're joining in and say, you know, we've researched this. We're going to help you with information that'll help you make a decision. And I understand why these other, I'm calling what they're punk law firms didn't just join in with them. Why didn't they make the call, say, look, this is what's going on. Let's get a round table. What's the best way we can, because what they don't realize is that if you fold, other people may fold.
Right.
But if we reunite, we can let the world know that we live in a democracy. You talk about, they always brag about capitalism. I mean, it's a business.
Right.
You know, and we should be able to make money the way we are able to make money. And we should not have to bow down to, I mean, it's a direct attack on capitalism, really, to me.
Every word is important. Every step is important. You know, even us talking about this, somebody's gonna call me and be mad. And someone's gonna always be upset. And even as an attorney, I see it every day. Attorneys.
Our job is not to make you happy. Our try is to search for the truth.
Right.
That's what it is. And sometimes the truth is painful.
It is. It is. So some attorneys have at these large law firms have stood up for themselves. Brianna Frey, an associate at Skadden, resigned publicly in March of 2025, citing the firm's capitulation to political pressure, and posted on LinkedIn and condemning the $100 million deal as undermining legal ethics.
I want her on my team.
Right.
She's a fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. Rachel Cohen, another associate, threatened resignation unless Skadden reconsidered his response. So I'm thinking she would have she should have resigned because they did not change their response. And she spoke in an interview with KACU News criticizing deal making with autocracy. So even today, you know, so these two attorneys, they're at these huge firms. They probably have bills. They have student loans probably, because they're associates, meaning they're not partners. They're lower down in the firm, and they still had enough courage to stand up.
Testicular fortitude.
Yes, that's impressive. That's impressive.
I'm impressed.
Man, so many people just, when it comes to it, and you put it in front of them a difficult situation, they just put their head down, they walk away. But these two folk did not. So impressive. So now, you know, how is this all gonna affect these large law firms? And just to put it out there, I've never worked at a large law firm. You ever worked at a large law firm?
Oh, no.
No. And unless you consider, some people consider the state attorney's office. I mean, it's a large office. It's Chicago. It's 1,000 attorneys, but
it's not really a law. Well, a different kind of law firm.
Yeah, it's a different kind of law firm, but
we didn't generate money. We was just locking people up.
Yeah. Well, you don't mean to laugh, but you know, it's just
basically that's what we're doing, locking people up.
Yeah, that's the way it works. My quick story about Big Law is when I was leaving the state attorney's office, I had the opportunity a big law firm actually hired me, accepted I was going to go. And I went to go into the office because they wanted to take a picture for the website, take a official picture. And I went there that day, and they were like, "Oh, the photographer's not here today, but let me show you where your office is going to be." It's like way over in some broom closet. They're like, "Well, we're going to take these walls down, and we're going to do all this to do all that." I was like, "Oh," but I got the feeling that day that, you know what, I don't think I want to work here. So, and people that helped me get there, and one of the main people that helped me get there was a judge, a mentor of mine, great guy. He's passed away since, but great person. And I told him, I went, saw him like the next day. I was like, I I don't think I want to work there. I think I'd rather do my own thing. And he did his own thing before he became a judge. He said, you know what? Even though I helped you out with this, I understand. You got to do what you got to do. And so I called the law firm the next day and say, I'm not coming. I've never heard people so mad in my life. I said, whoa, it's a good thing I didn't come there, because if you guys are, you just be professional. Some say best of luck to you.
When you're on your own and you're sole practitioner, you have that independence to make those decisions. You don't have a supervisor over you saying, do this, and it's not right. So you have the freedom to do in your heart what you think is right. And that's why I never really considered it, because I want that independence to be a free thinker, and I don't have to worry about someone say, well, if you don't do this, or so I've always been an independent free thinker.
And that skill or that personality trait is a lot more rare than you think. Some people claim to be free thinkers, but when it comes down to it and you put them in a situation, then you see the true colors. So now these big law firms, junior attorneys, going to raise ethical objections internally, but what's going to happen? They're either going to say, well, you either get with it or you're fired. You're going to have to quit. Tensions between firms' leadership, financial risk mitigation, and junior staff's values become public, meaning that law firms, they're big businesses, so they're people who are higher up are saying we need to make money. And then there are the younger attorneys who are saying, look, we, there's certain things I do and I don't want to do. And now the stuff's becoming out in the public instead of keeping it internally. And then some firms began revisiting their internal DEI political contribution policies post these executive
In other words,
orders.
they wouldn't have hired you.
Yeah.
The one you said, I don't want to work there, they wouldn't have hired you.
No, probably not.
Okay.
No. And that was many years ago. But even as I was hired at that firm many years ago, I had already done more juries than everybody at that law firm.
Yeah.
Even that many years ago. So this concept about the DEI, but on the other side of it, people say, well, if that's the case, then you don't need DEI. But we do, because in many cases, that's the only way to force some people to even look at different types of candidates.
A lot of Republicans use that to mean that you're only there because you're black. Okay, I mean, it's black, but you're not qualified.
And now, you're getting some reactions from the legal community, but even though, the comments, I'm not going to be too impressed by. But former VP Kamala Harris criticized the law firms for capitulating to political intimidation. But
Punk down.
yeah, basically, in essence, you guys punked out. Bar associations raised concerns about executive overreach into legal independence. And when you mix politics and the law are going to mix a lot. They kind of go hand in hand. That's why most elected officials usually are former attorneys, because you're making law, you're putting law into place, you're interpreting law, you're interpreting statutes, and that's what we do on a daily basis. So a lot of it's going to intermingle on a daily basis.
Is there a thin line between profit and purpose? What I mean is, if you're a large firm, your major concern is profits, but underlining that is, well, why are we suing? Mm-hmm. Sometimes that can have an impact on in this case, on your decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by a lot of these large firms making this decision, because their overarching goal is going to be profit, because the clients they represent are corporations, and their overarching goal, of course, is to make money. Now, if these were plaintiffs' firms or solo practitioners who represent common everyday people, I would be surprised. Well, not really, because then still a lot of times, a lot of people, they hold themselves out as champions
That's
and
true.
warriors of people, but
That's true.
we know the truth in that regard. So even with a former VP making those statements, and I'm not, who knows? I mean, she's a former attorney. So what? She is. I don't know if she still has a bar license now, but she was a practicing attorney. what situations that she's been faced with over her career. At what times when something difficult comes up where you have to stand up, even as an attorney, did she do it? Who knows? I don't know. This is very similar to just, having a king or something to that effect. It's not a democracy anymore.
It's being a king.
Right.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
There's no repercussions for anything you do, even if it's illegal. We're supposed to be a constitutional republic, a democracy. Mm-hmm. I could do anything I want, and the Supreme Court says there's nothing you can do about it. I'm immune. That's a king.
Yeah. It's a frightening, very frightening proposition, because many of the justices there who are now in the Supreme Court were appointed by Trump. So you go to court, we get to the highest court in the land, and now it comes time for these justices to show their courage. Do they have enough courage to oppose the person that appointed them when they know something, looking at something from the viewpoint of the law, is wrong? Will they have enough courage to stand up and tell Trump that he is wrong? Most people, most attorneys, again, no courage. Someone that is lauded as supposed to be one of the best legal minds because you're in the Supreme Court, that's the way it should work.
Well, we know the best legal minds are not in the Supreme Court. Come on.
That's the way it should work.
But,
when it comes down to it, they're not going to stand up for what's right. And that kind of brings me to our final kind of view of all this. As attorneys, what are our obligations? What's our obligation when it comes to endorsing a client's views or representing a client's views? So, this is real easy for me, and I tell clients all the time, I'm your attorney. My job is to represent you to the best of my ability. I'm going to listen to your input, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to do what I think is the best way to go around with the case. So in essence, what it's saying here, if you're a client, say you're representing Trump or something, and he tells you as your attorney, I want you to lie.
I've had clients do that. I'm like, no, no, because it's my reputation, my own self moralities. I'm not doing that. I don't care how much money you pay me.
Right.
I've had them no.
Yep. Find
somebody else.
Yep. I've done it many times myself. And that kind of comes to the next question. When is it appropriate to decline or withdraw from representation? It's the same thing I've told clients. I'm not doing that. I'm getting off the case. If you're going to persist in this way, if you want me to do these things, no, I'm not doing it. And I think a lot of people get the clients have the confusion that, well, I pay you, so you have to do what I say.
Exactly.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. You pay me to represent you.
And I sleep well at night.
Right.
Because I'm not going to do something illegal. It's not.
No.
Or improper or unethical. It's not going to happen.
It's just not. It's not. That's not the kind of person I am. First of all, but secondly, I'm not going to put my law license in jeopardy for someone who wants to do something underhanded.
Mm-hmm. That you work hard for.
Yeah.
Paid a lot of money.
Yep. And then the final sort of issue is, what are the First Amendment rights of firms and lawyers to associate with certain causes or clients? Is it proper to tell an associate, your firm, oh, you can't support these views, or we can't take this client because we don't support that client's political views?
So we wouldn't have had a civil rights movement then.
Yeah.
You're supporting equality where blacks can go to any bathroom they want to, or eat where they want to eat, or live where they want to live, or go to the school. Oh, then we're going to cut you off.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. That's a perfect example. One of my professors, Professor Clay. Did you have Clay?
Yeah, Clay. No, he was the president of the law school.
Well,
Clay, tall.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. Maybe he was the president before, but by the time I got there, he was my constitutional law.
I was like in the 1920s. Clay, tall guy, slim. Yeah.
But he was one of the attorneys who worked on Brown versus Board of Education with Thurgood Marshall, and he told us many stories. And I just always, I also had the privilege and pleasure to be taught by constitutional law by this person, but by this man. But he told us these stories, and I just think, man, how much courage and strength. I mean, they got death threats, of course, and they had to really fear for their lives and their families' lives, and of course, their careers were at stake. And that's a lot of times people, oh, you could commit career suicide by filing this lawsuit or arguing with this person or standing up to this person. But this man did all that where his actual life was in danger. And that's something that's very impressive. I think a lot of our courage in this country, a lot of the citizens' courage is going to be tested coming up. It's been tested. I think it's going to continue to be tested. And we'll see what people are really made of. We'll see what people are willing to do to stand up for what's right.
Oh, well, remember in the beginning, the Republicans were totally outraged. This is insane, blah, blah, blah. Then they all punked out.
Yep.
Because they were afraid of the king.
No courage.
Just keep your mouth closed.
Yeah. So, we'll see. I'm sure, some of these big law folk are going to be calling me and cursing at me, next couple of weeks or something.
We're ready to respond.
Yeah, we're ready.
Exactly.
I don't know. So, that's it for the trial attorneys. Thank you for, watching the show. And, if you like content like this, like, subscribe, like us where Instagram, which one? YouTube. Yeah, all those good things. TikTok, all that. Why it's still here. So, thanks again.
Okay.